Trauma is healed in relationship. This is a quote we see on the internet, and I've got thoughts about it. This one's going to piss people off. But okay, let's go. Hi, I'm Kirby. I am a specialist in trauma and attachment theory, and I have spent many years working on this stuff and parsing through, integrating my own personal lived experience, going from a dysregulated mess to relatively calm and assessing as secure, and integrating that with all the things I've read in books and lectures and teachings and classes and all that stuff, right? Okay, so this is something that I hear all the time, is that trauma was created in relationship, and so trauma is going to be healed in relationship. Or if it's the more extreme version of it, that's actually the subtext of what they're saying, is that trauma was created in relationship, and therefore I'm justified in wanting to be in relationship because that's the mechanism that is going to allow me to heal my trauma. And I don't agree with this at all. I think this is, let's talk about why. The reason why is because when I first heard that, I was in a state of pretty depressing isolation, and my attempts to connect with people, find a relationship, right? Because I'm sitting there, I'm like literally like super anxious. Well, actually, I'm all three insecure attachment styles would manifest inside me, and I could assess as all of them. But primarily anxious. That was kind of the more dominant one. And desperately wanting relationship, desperately wanting connection, because I'm a total validation addict, right? I didn't know at the time, but now I do. And so I'm in this place where it's like I don't feel good in myself, but yet if I do feel good, and life's bright and cheery and rainbows and unicorns, as long as there's a person there who's choosing me. And so, of course, every aspect of myself is oriented on finding a relationship. But of course, that means I'm coming across as needy, desperate, clingy, which are super unattractive, and then I'm being selected away from, right? I'm in a small geographic area. The dating pool is very small. Everybody basically knows each other. And then every once in a while I'd meet someone who shows a little bit of interest. We go on a date, we do some dancing or whatever. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Like, this will be it. Maybe she'll like me. And of course that just sabotages the whole process. Like, this person's being like, hey, I'm just here for a casual date. And like, you're showing up with like gigantic bundles of flowers, and you're like organizing these like fancy events, and you're super overgiving, and you're like monitoring, super available, calling all the time, blah, 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 all the standard stuff an anxious person does. And consequence is no relationship. And then I'm reading all these books and podcasts and videos and everything else, and I keep running into this thing. It's like, oh, trauma is healed in relationship. And then I'm sitting there being like, well, how fucked am I? And then the shame spiral just amps. The depression just amps, right? All these negative emotional states just get stronger because now I have this message coming from these like, people sitting there on a podcast. They're already young and attractive, and they got a podcast, so obviously they're successful, right? And so I'm playing this whole comparison game. It's like I'm in this state where I'm a total loser and my life is horrible and nobody wants me. And now you're telling me that the only way I have to find healing for the trauma that's trapped inside me is to be in relationship. And I was just like, that's horrible. But also the logical part of my brain, luckily, is still alive a little bit. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, that actually makes no sense at all. Like, okay, so let's look at that. This is very similar. We could say the same thing about like, oh, you're out playing your favorite sport and you fall down and you break your leg. And then someone comes along and says, well, the only way to heal your leg is to be in a hospital. Like, your body can't go through the natural healing process outside of a place where you're surrounded by doctors and people and drugs and caregivers and all that other kind of stuff. Or I guess maybe to flush out that analogy a little bit more, is that like you're visiting someone in the hospital and you fall down, you break your leg, and then you go home and someone's like, well, you broke your leg in the hospital. You can only heal your leg in a hospital. And it just makes no sense. The body has a natural healing mechanism that it goes through for both bones and muscles and cardiovascular and various other bits, and that includes psychology. Like psychology is nothing more than expression of the way our brains are wired, and our brains will rewire. That's part of the healing process. And so I approach it from that angle, and I'm just like, wait a second, this whole concept of you can only heal trauma in relationship is totally bogus. Because A, that tells all the people that aren't in a relationship, you're screwed, which is a horrible thing and completely untrue. But B, it doesn't map to what we know about human physiology and the healing process. The human body is what's called an antifragile system. And an, a fragile system is one that breaks under stress. A strong system is one that doesn't break under higher stress, but if you keep pushing the stress higher, it will eventually crack and break. An anti-fragile system is one that it's like you give it the right amount of stress and then you give it time to compensate and grow and respond to that stress, and it becomes strong enough to face that stress. And so now you give it more stress and it gets stronger, more stress, stronger, more stress, stronger. Every aspect of human physiology is anti-fragile. So why wouldn't this be true about trauma recovery also? And I'll tell you, when I was on the road of believing this BS, it created lots of anxiety and depression, lots of desperate neediness for connection, relationship, et cetera, et cetera. It amped my addiction. I already had an addiction to validation, connection, like approval. And then this idea that like, oh, someone comes along and says, oh yeah, you're justified for craving a relationship so much because that's how you're going to heal. And then all of my addictive aspects inside me just go whoosh through the roof. And they say, yeah, now I'm fully justified. I don't have to do any work on my own because that's going to be inefficient or whatever. And that's kind of the third problem with this. Is like, one is that it totally tanks all the people who are in the bad space. Two, it does not line up with what we know about human physiology. And three, it literally feeds all the addicts. It gives them a justification for their addiction. And this is one of the reasons why I feel like this is one of the most harmful messages I see in these like anxious support groups and stuff, is because it's like you've got these people that have profound unhealed attachment wounds. And those attachment wounds are driving their life. Like just they're pushing them around like a big meat robot. And then they get this message and it's just like, sure enough, like you're totally justified in wanting and craving a relationship and that's going to solve all your problems and blah, 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 and all that other kind of stuff. And then there's like, yay, someone just told me, some big powerful authority force on the outside just told me that I'm justified in craving a relationship. And so therefore I don't have to take any accountability for my own healing journey outside of relationship because look, I've got this book attached. And this book, I don't have it with me because it's crap. I've got this book attached and it tells me that the way that I heal my attachment trauma is to go find a secure person and then everything's going to be fine. Bullshit. That is a completely irresponsible approach to the problem at hand. And that book has been mostly discredited by modern researchers that are in the attachment space. They say, don't use that book, don't go there. But it's the mainstream one. It's the one that's like, people first discover attachment theory. I mean, it happened to me. You look it up, this book comes along, says, oh, well, it's got attachment theory, it's got attached in the name. And look, these people are experts. Let's bring them in. They are experts, and I actually respect them as scientists, but I do not respect the message of that book. It's extremely biased against avoidance, and it gives this horrific picture of the healing process. I mean, horrific in the sense that it's doom if you can't find a secure match in the dating pool, then you're effed, right? That's basically the subtext of their approach. And also, once I got deeper into it and understand these things better, you be it's hard to explain this, but like when you research it long enough and it's not even researching, it's as you internalize this theory and the frameworks of how these things work, it changes your perception of what you're hearing when a person talks and uses words. The language they use and how they say it is literally telling me things about the beliefs inside their nervous system in this moment. Like they chose this word instead of that word. They have this kind of pause. They've got and it's like, it's weird because it's very analogous to hypervigilance. And my hypervigilance is super good off the charts. Good in the sense of, the curse that can bring benefit. And so maybe that's why I'm extra good at it. But what I'm saying is that you read through the book Attached, and you begin hearing the language that they're using, and you're like, oh, this author definitely leans on the anxious side of the spectrum, and they have not actually resolved wounds yet. They've just found a functional mechanism of living. And then this author is much more neutral. Like, so one of these authors is actually in the secure neutral space, and the other person is, the words and thoughts and opinions are definitely being driven by some kind of anxious drive inside there. Anyway, whatever. That's a weird tangent. Don't treat the book Attached, don't treat it as gospel, because it's not. If you want a gospel, like if you want to pick one book as gospel for attachment theory, it is Attachment Disturbances in Adults, Treatment and Comprehensive Repair by Dr. Daniel P. Brown et al. And the whole team. I always forget his co-author, and he's a sweet, awesome guy, fantastic scientist. And I always forget his name. Anyway, maybe I'll put it in the links if I do such things. Okay, so we're coming back to this idea of like, trauma is healed in relationship. No, it's not. It can be, but that's not the only way. Because this is what's happening. The healing of trauma is rewiring the brain so that the threat detection system will operate differently under a given stimulus. That's it. Trauma is a miscalibrated threat response. I learned a lesson at some point in time, and in that point in time, I learned this lesson with such emotional magnitude, such emotional intensity, that it got stored with the emotional intensity. Basically, it's like, think of your memories having like a little volume setting next to each one. It's like, well, this memory is a 1, and this memory is a 5, and this memory is a 27. And so when your brain goes to the whole bank of memories, the 27 is like sticking up here like a great big spike. And it's like, oh, that's the first memory I'm going to grab. So trauma is really just this moment. Well, there's traumatic moments, there's traumatic memories, and there's traumatic activations. Those are 3 different things. And so the traumatic moment is the moment that my system is completely tapped out. I am completely in a state of overwhelm. There's too much going on that is threatening or borderline threatening. And my threat detection system becomes completely overwhelmed, and it basically changes the way memories get stored. And now I've learned this lesson. That kind of moment, that kind of situation is terrifying. And we need to respond with a system-wide protective, defensive activation so that we can survive. Trauma is a lesson learned with high emotional intensity, and then that's the formation of the trauma. The traumatic activation is because my threat detection system is recalibrated itself around that particular threat. And now it is activating my entire nervous system in defense, in protective against that threat. Okay, so that's what trauma is. And now we take that and we say, well, what's going on here with this idea that trauma is healed in relationship? Yes, it can be. And it's a very effective tool, because what happens is I'm in the state of a relationship during the first 3 years. Other things can happen too, but it's almost always comes back to the first 3 years. And I'm in this relationship with a person, and then that's when the wounds form. That's when the traumatic moments happen. And now later on, when I'm in relationship, a lot of things happening as an adult are very similar to the things that are happening when I was a child, right? It's like there's close physical proximity. We're living in the same house. I've got feelings of love and adoration. Like our skin is touching. Like there's a bunch of things that are uniquely happening in that romantic relationship that the last time I experienced them was when I was a baby. So your brain is taking the lessons from when I was a baby and they're applying those lessons to this here as an adult. And then all those traumas are present. All those threats are present, or the closest thing to them. And so now I've got this perfect petri dish, this perfect moment where the biggest wounds that I have are going to come to the surface. Those level 27 memory spikes, those are going to arise inside me while I'm sitting here with a romantic partner. Okay, so we can say, if I live more on the avoidant or dissociative side of the survival matrix, then that memory isn't going to get touched. And so it's only when I step into a romantic relationship that it actually gets activated. Okay, so basically the trauma's been there, but invisible, kind of. And then this is the first time it comes out. And now I'm in this situation where I have the opportunity to discharge the emotional intensity and learn new lessons. It's a great opportunity for that. So yeah, taking a relational trauma from the childhood and then moving to the adult years where you're in romantic relationship, that's a perfect opportunity to work on this stuff, to provoke the traumas that are hidden, and then have a nice little test area, workshop, healing chamber, that those problems, those miscalibrations can be recalibrated. Your threat detection system can be recalibrated about what is actually safe and what is actually threatening. Okay? I hope that makes sense to people. But that's not the only way that that can happen. In fact, arguably, it's not even the most efficient. Because in that situation, you're completely dependent upon how the other person shows up in order to trigger the wounds and the traumatic memories. And if that's the way I operate through this whole thing, then I'm just like, I'm bumbling through life. I don't really know what my traumas are. And I'm in this relationship because I really want someone to like me and choose me and want me and prioritize me. Like, if that's the situation I'm in, and now I'm in relationship, and then suddenly these big triggers happen, and I'm just like, oh my God, I feel all these bad emotions, and now we've got conflict, and I'm angry at my partner, and how dare they do that, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's actually, now your system is on high alert, and you don't know why, and you haven't really isolated the trauma, and you haven't really developed any kind of action plan on how to rectify and retrain, recalibrate your threat detection system. So you're just kind of bumbling and hoping for the best. And honestly, this is what I see in relationships. Like 99% of the people I work with kind of come in with all this like weird pop culture-y whatever views about relationship, and they're just like hoping for the best, and they're like, somebody come help me. And it's like, well, let's dig into this and understand what's actually going on. What is your specific belief system? How is your threat detection system? What is it activating? What is causing your threat detection system to detect threat? There is always an answer to that question. Always. 100% of the time. Most people don't even go looking for it. So it's literally like we have one situation that will send you into a spin, one specific combination of stimulus that will send you into a spin reliably, like every time. That seems important. Seems like it's valuable information to go figure that out, understand it, and then from there we can be like, oh, this is the truth of who I am, and now we can begin a process of rectifying that, discharging the emotional payload, like desensitizing to the fear, and then guess what? The trigger goes away. And like I've said before, if you can reliably discharge the emotional payload and the trigger no longer is triggering in that person's life, Does that mean the trauma's healed? Because literally they have no behavioral response to the threat anymore. To me, that's what healing looks like, but you can have a different definition if you want. So what I'm saying here is that in relationship is a great opportunity to work on trauma, especially if you're targeted. Relationships are a great place to work on this stuff, especially if you have a specialist like myself or any kind of attachment-oriented person. And then you can deduce, like you can kind of untangle the emotional mess and figure out where the kind of the root cause is. And then you can develop an action plan on basically how to discharge that issue. But it's not the only way. We need an answer for all those people whose threat detection system has compelled a collection of behavior that drives them into isolation, drives them into solitude, drives them into a total terror of human connection because it's so scary, right? We need an answer for those people. And this BS narrative that like the only way you're going to heal your trauma is to be in relationship basically excludes hundreds and thousands of people on this earth and says, sorry guys, you're out of luck. No, not at all. I totally refuse to accept that. And that's why I think it's a dangerous message, right? And so through this lens of what trauma is and how we rectify it, we can help those people. We can approach them if they want to, right? Or be approached by them and say, yeah, we can help you heal your trauma. We can help you understand the core fear mechanism that's at play and why your threat detection system, like what is the stimulus that is causing your threat detection system to activate so hard? We have to find that first. And once we find that, we can begin a treatment plan that will help you discharge the emotional payload and normalize, desensitize to the fear. And when that happens, your threat detection system will recalibrate around a new set of truths. And when it does that, it stops activating, it stops triggering. And the person no longer feels this deep inner compulsion to go home and isolate every night. They no longer feel this deep inner compulsion that makes them run for the hills the moment that a girl smiles at him or, some gentleman, asks for her number, right? These are the people that are terrified of relationships. We absolutely, positively need an answer for those people. And I believe this model of what trauma is and how it works is exactly the thing that we've needed for years. And I can guarantee, that's exactly what I needed 10 years ago. And there was literally not a single person in the mental health field that I found that could help, because everyone is in this emotional space where they kind of got this loosey-goosey, fuzzy idea of what trauma is and be like, oh, well, like, let's work on your boundaries and like, your self-confidence and let's focus on like, oh, you really are a good person and, everyone deserves to be loved and all this crock, right? You can hear the disdain in my voice. Like those things are true, but they're not helpful. That's my issue. Yes, you're a good person. Yes, I'm a good person too. And like, I've got all these lovely traits and, tools at my disposal and an amazing mind and like, neat activities, all that kind of stuff. And it's just like to spin in that place is just this way of trying to like gaslight the pain away, gaslight the threat away. It's like, it's just training myself to gaslight my own threat detection system. Okay, maybe that works over time, kind of eventually, but it's like we're not really getting to the root of it. We're not really getting to the point where it's just like in this situation where there is a person that has any kind of social clout looking at me and saying nasty things about me, my nervous system is going to fall into abject terror. I can already hear some people out there being like, what are you talking about? That is the heart of codependence, which is defined as I care more about your opinion of me than I care about my opinion of me. And this is one of the number one things I see when I'm working with people, both in one-on-one sessions and group work, and then honestly, internet discussions as well. And people don't even realize it. They don't even realize their entire nervous system and threat detection system has been calibrated around this idea that I have to maintain, monitor, and manage other people's opinion of me. Because if I don't do that, something terrible is going to happen. That's literally the mechanistic approach to what is codependence and how does it affect my life. And you trace that backwards, and it's like, oh, yeah, because you had one or more attachment figures, usually parents, that were extremely critical, judgmental, and harsh, oftentimes. I mean, there's other mechanisms, but that's probably the most common one. And so what happens is your nervous system, your threat detection system orients around that to say that, like, I need to monitor their opinion of me to make sure that it stays positive. Because if it ever falls less than positive or into the negative camp, there's going to be this tsunami of shame and attack and negative, it can vary anywhere between like massive shame-based emotional negativity all the way to like physical assault. Somewhere in that spectrum, right? Something horrible will happen. I guess it can also be like the removal of things I care about. That's another often one. So, if a person's trapped in that space and they just say like, oh, I go out in public, this is a good example. People say like, I have social anxiety. What does that mean? Right? And I'm not dismissing this. I'm saying that label does not help you. People come along and be like, well, I have really bad social anxiety. It's like, BS, you have social anxiety. That's just a word that vomits out of our mouth. It's like, no, you have a situation where when you are in a public situation, you are terrified of what other people think of you. Now we're getting closer. Now we're getting to like the meaty bits. And then it's just like, invariably, you talk to someone like that and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm more of a one-on-one kind of person. I was literally this guy for years, decades. Like, no, like one-on-one, we can have a deep, intricate, emotional conversation where I share myself, and you like one-on-one is totally easy. And that's where I'm in my juicy spot and I love it. And it feels amazing. I literally said all these things. And then it's like, okay, well, if it's two people, so I can hang out with a couple, or I'm with my girlfriend and we're hanging out with a couple. So now we got 4 people total. It's like, yeah, I'm totally fine with that too. Well, of course you are, because your nervous system is completely internalized, has an entirely internalized model of your primary attachment figure, which is your girlfriend or boyfriend. And so now I have an internal working model of who they are, what they like, what they don't like, how they respond to things, blah, 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 right? And so I can constantly monitor them because I've got such an accurate model inside my head, and I can manage and maintain their opinion of me. And now we're hanging out with this other couple, which is 2 more people. And I'm like, oh, my hypervigilance can handle that. I can handle the monitoring of 3 people. One of them I've got a model of, and then these other 2 people, I know they're friends. I know them well enough that I can maintain and monitor their opinion of me at all times. I can make sure that we stay in a positive space. But move me to a group setting where there's a bunch of strangers that I don't know, and there's too many data points for my brain to track, and it becomes overwhelming, right? You see this all the time, like literally all the time. Someone's in this place where they say, I have social anxiety, or I don't do good in groups or whatever. And it's like, what does it feel like? And it's like, well, we go in there, it just feels overwhelming. What's overwhelming? You can literally just stand in the middle of the room for 6 hours, not speak to another person, and just like zone out. Like, there's no demands here. Of course there are. I'm being a little bit, excessive for humor's sake, but it's like, it's not that hard to sit on a couch at a party for an hour or two, have a couple of shallow conversations, and then bail. What is so overwhelming? Why is your nervous system on such high alert? We have to answer that question. And see, this is what I'm talking about. People get all wrapped up in the labels and this kind of like high level, floofy description of what's going on, and they're just like, oh well, we just have bad emotions or bad feelings or overwhelmed, whatever, right? It's like, no, get into it on purpose. Go there. What is the thing? Why is this so overwhelming? And I was there and I lived it and I parsed through it, and I, without any damn help, like there was no coach, therapist, or anything that helped me figure this one out. And then it was like, oh, I'm here because, and I did it with visualization practices. I would like, okay, there's 10 people in the room. That's too much. There's 2 people in the room. I'm totally at ease. Okay, there's 4 people in the room. Okay, that's still okay. And about 6, and I'm like, 6, it's starting to get uncomfortable. Move it to 8, and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely uncomfortable. And 10, I'm like, get me out of here. I'm like, okay, so then in the visualization practices, I'm moving these numbers around. I'm pulling, I'm like, okay, we're going to pluck out all the strangers and just make it people that I have a long-term, deep-seated friendship with. And I'm like, oh, well, then the number goes up. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense unless it's simply I'm worried I have some kind of concern or overwhelm that has to do with strangers, which is exactly it. I can't monitor their opinion of me. I don't know what they're thinking. And as soon as I say that, some little part inside my brain says, oh, yeah. Like, what if they're thinking this? What if they're thinking that? Like, I walk in, you know, do I look good? Am I awkward? Have I made some kind of social faux pas again? Right? That people are going to laugh at me. I'm like, oh, so this is just me being afraid of judgment. This is just me being afraid of people thinking ill of me. And I realized how much energy, time, metabolic cost that my brain was spending trying to monitor all this stuff. It's like, okay. So going back to the original question, which is like, do we have to be in relationship to heal trauma? No, we don't. We just have to be in a situation where we can intentionally recalibrate the threat response system of my body and my brain. That's all I need. And it just happens to be that being in relationship is an optimal place for doing that, but it's by no means the only answer. I can go into a visualization practice where I imagine a party with 10 people in it and they're all strangers, and then I can intentionally activate my threat response system in that moment, because guess what? My physiology will tell me that this is uncomfortable for me. It will tell me that it's perceiving this as a threat. And I'm just like, oh, I can, in my mind, in this visualization, I can imagine that party. And there's the 10 strangers, and 2 of them are jerks. Oh, and these 2 over here are definitely like, I'm hearing things that they're saying. I'm like, oh, they're definitely gossipy. And maybe this person over here actually even said something about my ugly shoes, right? And I can keep spinning. It's not spinning, exercising. I can keep exercising in this visualization to keep myself in this space where my threat detection system is activating enough that I'm very uncomfortable, but it's not activating so much that I feel overwhelmed and I have to run away. And in doing so, every time I do that, and then I come out of it and I come back to myself and I come back to a life of safety, I'm just like, oh, I can do this. And in doing so, you discharge the emotional payload, you normalize the experience, you desensitize yourself to the fear, and then it gets better. And then sure enough, 6 months, well, I guess for me, because I didn't have any guidance on this, and it was just something I would do every once in a while. I didn't actually have a coach like whipping, go, go, go. I didn't have anyone helping motivate me for doing more reps more often. It ended up taking about a year. But it was like, the way that came about for me is that I moved to a foreign country. I was married at the time, moved to this foreign country. At the time that we moved, I thought the relationship was idyllic and perfect and everyone was jealous of us and we were so in love and all that kind of stuff. And then we moved to this other country. We have no support network. All the insecurities start coming up for both of us. There's this whole attachment trauma ping pong thing going on. La, 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 la. But like during kind of the latter months of this, the downfall of that marriage, we were going to a lot of social events. And in those social events, I was pushing myself to go into this space because it would keep her happy. Because I'm just like, I'm on the verge of losing this person. And I can't let that happen because I'm super anxious and I'm super insecure and I need this person at my side to tell me that I'm worthy and valuable and attractive and la, 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 right? And so I'm pushing myself into all these situations. And I would push myself into these 10-person parties or 100-person nightclubs or whatever, right? And my nervous system would profoundly react. And I would be, apparently, from the feedback I got from her, was that like she could see it on my face. You are super uncomfortable. You hate it here. And now I feel responsible for bringing you here. I hate you or hate this situation or whatever, right? Not a good dynamic, right? So my inability to be comfortable in a social situation at that point in time in my brain is just like, oh, this weakness of mine contributed to the death of this marriage that was everything for me, and I don't ever want to do that again. And so I need to get better at this. The typical things an anxious person does after the end of a major relationship is they try to identify all the things that went wrong and say, I'm going to fix this one, I'm going to fix that one, I'm going to fix this one, and then they'll finally love me, right? Either trying to get the ex back or trying to prepare for the next one. And all of it is this transactional illusion that like if I can make myself good enough, then I will earn the love that I desperately am craving, right? And so I basically set this goal out and said I am going to do whatever it takes to become comfortable in a big social situation, and start reading books and all that kind of stuff, and got some guidance on things, but this was the one that had the most traction. Is it just like I need to visualize myself being in that nasty space, or it's not even nasty, it's just uncomfortable for me, not for anybody else, and I need to get to the point where I can be comfortable with that. And so I started doing reps in real life. Like I got new friends and I got guests and I would host travelers, and like I was going out every single night of the week, and it was like this club, that club, this thing, and I would be sometimes I'd be spinning in anxiety, and other times I was so bloody tired that I just struggled to even care what someone thought. And those were the good nights. And so I fatigued myself out to the point, I stopped sleeping so much, and I fatigued myself out to the point that I was tired all the time so that I could have a good night. And in doing so, I could have a good night out and not be spinning in anxiety. And then I come home and be like, wow, that one felt good. Maybe I'm healed now, right? But I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, what was happening is that I was doing reps. I was pushing myself into the situation where I'm in a social situation, dealing with a whole bunch of strangers, many of them judging me, either on looks or appearance or dance moves or dress code or whatever. And I'm doing that situation, and I'd hacked it so much that I was so tired, I struggled to care. And I had some legitimate friends with me at the time, like a little bit of some dudes I can lean on. And then I did that enough times that my brain started seeing it's like, oh, I can do this and just be fine. We can go out, have a good time, not be hypervigilantly monitoring every person around me. And then we can come home and sleep and wake up the next day and no drama. And you do that enough times and your brain says, oh, that's not worthy of a system-wide threat response. Does that make sense? I know I've kind of been a little bit all over the place, but these things really do connect. So that is my thoughts on, do we need to be in relationship to heal trauma? Absolutely not. Not only absolutely not, it's that message itself is damaging and toxic. It is completely classist in the sense that if you're a person who's capable of finding a relationship, good on you, hooray. Now all you got to do is sit around in this holding pattern waiting for a secure person to show up to save you. No, don't do that. And then if you're not in that situation, well, too bad. Bad luck for you. Your life sucks. We don't care because we're too busy trying to fill our own attachment voids. And if you're a validation addict, this message will basically just like straight heroin right into the source of the addiction. It's like you're fully justified in craving a relationship and orienting your whole life on seeking the next one and dating. It's just like, no, you don't have to do any of your work because the way that trauma gets healed is in relationship. It's like, no, that's like literally telling an addict, go get the next fix. And that's the way you're going to feel better about life. And I don't agree with that at all. So sorry if this ruffled feathers. I mean, honestly, the people that hate me are not even going to listen this long. So TTFN. But for those that have listened this long, I hope it's been helpful. And I hope that this brings some kind of meaningful perspective and change in your life. Peace.